One of the next questions that we have to answer on our journey to creating a better plan with our ammunition is deciding what firearms are we actually going to use, because that's going to affect how we're training, where we're training, and possibly what we're training for. And while that might seem like kind of a basic question to some people, it's one that I don't think that most people really give enough thought to. So today's video, the goal of this is to have a discussion around different firearms and help you along in your journey to creating this plan, figuring out what guns you need to train with so that you can create a better plan with your ammo. Let's dive into it. In the last episode, we talked about some of the different scenarios that you might be training for. And we just kind of went over them really briefly. And this whole series is not necessarily trying to take a super deep dive into all the nuances of firearm ownership. And you could argue that we probably should do that in some regards. And as we get to the training and we start really talking about implementing a plan, that's where we're going to dive a lot deeper into the context of training with a firearm. But for now, with the last episode, we kept it kind of brief. We just touched on some of the reasons that people might be carrying for self-defense. And in the other episode, we just touched on different reasons why Americans own firearms in general. Largely, we discussed that most people own firearms for protective reasons. They want to be able to defend themselves. And so this episode is going to dive into the firearms specifically that we would recommend that you consider. And hopefully we give you enough information in this video that you can make an educated decision on which firearm you should buy for yourself. And this is probably one of the most complex topics in the training realm that you're going to get into, because there's a ton of personal preference. And at the end of the day, the information I'm throwing out here in this video is going to be my personal preference. But I'm going to try to present this in an as unbiased way as possible. And just understand that when I'm speaking to these things, this is based off of data that I've gathered from people who have used firearms defensively, people that I would consider experts. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do eat, sleep, and live this world of firearms and training. This is what I live every single day. So there's a couple different firearm types that you're going to see out in the wild, and you're going to see things like bolt action hunting rifles. We're going to see shotguns for bird hunting, lever action rifles, revolvers, semi-auto pistols, AR-15s that are more of a standard. Maybe they have a 16-inch barrel, compact AR-15s, subguns. There's just an endless list of different variants of firearms, and it can get overwhelming as you start diving into this world. If you go to a gun shop and you start talking to the different people at the counter, they also can sometimes be less than helpful. We'll put that nicely. I've seen so many different people at gun shops be recommended horrible firearms for their first firearm. And this video is not necessarily about that, but hopefully I do give you guys a little bit of information around that as well. For the vast majority of people, we're typically going to recommend that you get some sort of a sidearm. And for us, that's a semi-automatic pistol, something like this Glock 19 that has a removable magazine. And in most situations, we would tend to caution people against different compact pistols. The reason why is the smaller the handgun, the more difficult it is to shoot. And as you're embarking on your journey into the world of firearms, you're gonna start at what I call suck. You're gonna really suck really bad when you start, and the smaller the handgun, the harder it is to learn. You can break through that, and with a lot of practice and time, you can learn how to use a very compact pistol. But like I stated in the other episode, most people aren't training. Most people buy a gun, they throw it in their purse, they put it on their body, or they don't carry it at all, or it lives in a glove box, it lives in a safe, something like that. And the problem is, especially with compact pistols or something like a snub-nosed revolver, if you don't train with it, they are very snappy handguns. They're very difficult to maneuver with and shoot well. So you need to be putting a lot of time and energy into that. By and large, we would recommend a semi-automatic pistol. Another option here in a sort of compact, not really a subcompact, but a smaller frame, Glock 19 size, would be this SIG P320. That's another good option. And again, I'm not focusing on the brand here. I'm just telling you guys that by and large, most people that want to conceal carry are going to be looking at a semi-automatic handgun. As you get past that, if you decide that, hey, I want to be able to defend myself with something with a little bit more power. I want to carry a larger firearm with me. Like I touched on in the last episode, I want to be more of a modern first responder, modern Minuteman. I want to have a carbine or an AR pistol or something like that. That's when a lot of people start looking towards the AR-15, and I have a couple variations here that I can show you guys. But largely, if you're going to be looking at a rifle for self-defense, our team tends to recommend the AR-15. And the reason why is they're super modular, they're very easy to learn. We've done a video where we actually compare an AR-15 to an AK-47, and that kind of dives into all the reasons as to why an AR-15 is such an awesome platform. There's a reason why the AR-15 is America's rifle, and it's the most popular rifle from my research that I've done in America, period. But there's other people that have things like bolt action rifles, and they might have shotguns that are bird guns or lever action rifles.
4570! Woo!
You might ask yourself, is that good enough for me to defend my home? The reality is yes. I mean, I guess you can defend yourself with any firearm or any weapon if you're willing to use it. But if we're trying to be very strategic, we're trying to own arms that allow us to train well, that allow us to amass large quantities of ammunition, to be able to hit the range regularly, that they are built around a platform that's designed to do well in combat. Your bolt action hunting rifle just isn't going to do that. Okay, do the guns that I have fill the role that I need them to fill? And if they don't, I'm not saying go out and sell them, but at the same time, we have to realize that we need to pick guns that are going to help us, not hinder us. So you can make the argument that a lever action rifle, say in 44 mag that holds 10 or 12 rounds, could be a good option for self-defense. And I would accept that and say, okay, yeah, that's the area, pistol calibers, I understand that, and I could buy into that. When we get into things like bolt action hunting rifles, it's kind of one of those things where, I mean, I guess you could do it. My 270 holds 4 rounds, and honestly, that's not something I would personally grab to defend my home. I would be way more confident taking my 10.3 inch 5.56. It's got a good weapon light on it, has detachable magazines. This means that reloading it or working through a malfunction is much easier. It is just a very modular platform. So when it comes to different rifles, that's really what we're talking about. We're really encouraging people to consider going out and building an AR-15. And maybe yours isn't gonna look like this. Maybe you don't need a bipod. Maybe you don't need a 60 round drum mag. I mean, it's America, so you should have a 60 round drum mag. But maybe you don't think that this is what you need. Maybe something simpler like my 10.3 over here is the gun that you would need. Honestly, how you set it up, it does matter, but you can get in the rabbit hole of nuances. Good optic, good gun, quality brand, weapon light, and sling. And we'll dive more into that as we're creating a plan around our ammunition. So we talked about the semi-automatic pistol. We talked about semi-automatic rifles as being kind of the king of the show here. One of the questions people often have, or people throw around, and there's a lot of misinformation around this, is shotguns. And shotguns are a very potent platform, but for me personally, if I was going to go recommend someone get into a firearm for self-defense, shotguns are the last thing that I will recommend for somebody. And there's a couple reasons why. Now, I'm not telling you to say no to shotguns. If you're a guy, maybe your wife's getting into shooting, or you're a lady that's single or something and you're trying to defend your house, or your husband's away, or whatever your case might be for why you own a gun or want to own a gun, when you get into shotguns, they require a lot of extra training. People think that it's just point in the room and spray the whole room full of lead, and that's just not the case. You have to aim just like a rifle. The downsides that I see of a shotgun are the fact that they hold way less ammunition. Reloading shotguns takes a lot of practice. You can get very quick with them, but at the same time, it does take a ton of practice. So are they a viable option? Sure, of course they are. There's a lot of people that have joked in the past that if you shoot a home intruder with an AR-15, it's very effective. A handgun can be very effective. If you shoot them with a shotgun, you take pieces of them off because it's literally like exploding pumpkins. You've seen videos like that. Shotguns are enormously powerful and they're very versatile with their ammunition. But what comes with that is usually a cumbersome platform that has a weird manual of arms. A lot of people have pump action shotguns. They're very reliable, but if you just throw it at a new shooter, they're gonna fumble with that. And on top of that, we have extremely violent recoil. So for most people, if you're gonna build a loadout and you're gonna start really training well, I would highly, 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 highly recommend a semi-automatic pistol of some sort, and then picking up some sort of an AR-15. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, just let's make sure we're buying something that's quality so that as we continue through this series, we aren't running into the situation where we bought a junk gun and now we have to replace all kinds of parts because now we're using it and seeing a lot of different failures and things like that. So as we go forward with this series and we continue on this journey to help you guys create a plan with your ammunition, these two items are what we're going to largely focus on. And you're gonna see a couple different pistol platforms, you're gonna see a couple different AR-15 platforms, but we're not really gonna dive into shotguns in this series. We're looking at items and arms that have readily available ammunition. I know that's kind of a weird term right now. Ammo's like gold. You can't hardly get it or it's super expensive, and that's the whole purpose of this series. I don't foresee the price of ammunition dropping anytime soon. Availability is going to come back, but the prices are still going to be high. But we want to focus on what gives you the most bang for your buck. That's something you can put on your waistband and carry with you every single day. And it's something that you can throw in a backpack or keep as a home defense tool. And in our opinion, that would be the AR-15 and a semi-auto pistol. Once we establish that, then we can create that solid plan. And guys, the next couple episodes, we're going to do just that. We're going to help you create a solid plan and a way that you can track your performance. Because at the end of the day, if you're just going out and shooting and you have no plan, you're really just plinking. And there's not anything morally wrong with going out and plinking, and sometimes it's just fun to go have fun with firearms. But if you're serious about training and you're serious about protecting your loved ones, we need to take this one step further and create a solid strategy and a mission and create that plan for our ammunition so that we know we're growing and we're becoming an asset for our community. We'll dive into that in the next couple episodes.